So my name's Ian Gotts. I'm the co-founder and CEO of Elements. So 3 numbers, 10, 20, 30. 10 years as a consultant with Accenture, 20 years as a Salesforce customer, 30 years doing business analysis, business change, business process improvement. So yes, I'm very old. So this session is called Good to Great UPN. So first of all, does anybody know what UPN is? Some of you? Universal Process Notation. It's a process mapping standard. I know that sounds awful, but actually it will actually be quite interesting, I think. I've been doing this for about, 30 years. I drew my first process map in 1986 as a consultant for Accenture. We were mapping out an ERP system using AutoCAD, but it was a hierarchical process mapping thing which we went and built. Life has moved on, clearly, in terms of the way people want to document process. People are building flowcharts and other bits and pieces. This is a significant improvement on that, and it's been used by hundreds, no, that's not true, thousands of companies over the last 20 years. But it seems to be a hidden secret still. The good news is people like Salesforce have now made it it's their standard for mapping processes. So if you're there trying to engage business users in why you shouldn't be making some changes or why you should, helping them understand the business process with a way that you can document it in live workshops and really get them engaged, this is an approach that absolutely works. I've done, hundreds if not thousands of workshops with customers on this whole approach, okay? So that's a bit of the backdrop. So, and again, we'll make this as interactive as you want. We can go as long as you want. I'm intending to spend about half an hour or so, but again, if there's more interest, we can keep going longer. I have no shortage of stories to entertain you with. That is a BPMN diagram, Business Process Management Notation. One of our consultants said to me, or one of our customer success managers said, if a picture paints 1,000 words, why do you need 1,000 words to explain it? That is a flowchart. That's a genuine photograph I took at a client where they were walking the senior management rank and could you sign this off? Really? And that went all the way around. That was all four walls of a boardroom. I'm not sure if you spotted, and if you were here for the panel session, we don't have a boardroom anymore. We're all virtual. So what's happened is there's a whole bunch of things that are happening to how we now engage our business users to understand what we should be building. That's no better. True? This is all, and I see this kind of stuff all the time, and it's like, we don't really understand what we do. This is what the consultant gave us. We don't understand it. People relate to that? Yeah. So a couple of things have changed, haven't they? Number one is that the business is moving more quickly. Number two is that we're all now remote, so we can't sit everyone in front of this massive room of all these different shapes. And number three is this content ought to be something we could use to actually train our users. So it's all about, first of all, understanding the business. We should be able to reuse that content for user acceptance testing, because we ought to be able to test that the things we built supported the business process. Yeah? And then we could use it for training. So I think we've driven a different set of requirements as well, which is why UPN or an approach like UPN works. So what we've now got is we've got a whole bunch of different audiences. It's no longer one audience. This is no longer, I built a process map or a flowchart, I gave it to the developers, we now throw it away. But a process map actually has a life well beyond having drawn it. Because the other thing is we never implement Salesforce once. We're constantly re-implementing it. Salesforce, any system, we're constantly re-implementing it. And therefore, we're building on this content. So we shouldn't be starting with, I need to understand how that works. Let's start with yet another process map. We should be building on the ones we've already got. So this is a continuing asset that we continue to build. Yes? The other thing is the developers need to look at these process maps, because if we send them a user story that says, as a salesperson, I want to raise an opportunity so that I can close more deals, there's not very much there. But if that user story has linked to it some process maps, it's got linked to it some documentation, some wireframes and all those other things, immediately they've got some context. If only to go, I don't understand what you mean and I don't want to build it yet. So again, our development teams need to look at this stuff because it gives them the context. Senior management need it for a very different reason. Senior management hate process, I get that, but they love metrics. Unless you understand the process, you can't work out what the right metrics are. There used to be a metric in one of the mobile phone companies in the UK, which was no call on the support desk, on the call desk, would last longer than 2 minutes. Great metric. What was the behavior? At the end of 2 minutes, they put the phone down and go, I think the best thing you do is call back on this number. Yeah, people act as their measure. They drive those metrics. What you need to do is start thinking about the correct metrics based on the process you want to achieve. The other one is this idea of called leading versus lagging metrics. New concept? Lagging metrics are things like how many people turned up to Disney World yesterday. I could do nothing about that now. A leading metric might be how many people are on this ride, or how many people in this restaurant, and how many people have just come through the gate. I can do something with that because I can then push them to wherever I want them to go to. Lagging metrics are how many people left the company. What's a leading metric? How many people calling in sick? Great metric. Other leading metrics in HR. How many people are asking to see a copy of their contract? Yeah? How many people are not filling in surveys? How many people checked out? So these are leading metrics. The lagging metric is how many people left the company. So process is a really good way of making sure that you understand the end-to-end process, and therefore the senior management can then start thinking about the metrics that make sense. Now bear in mind, those metrics may be really hard to get. Often metrics are the ones that are easy to get. How many people, length of call time, that's maybe not the right metric. Actually, successful first fix on failure is actually a metric. Hard to get, but at least if you understand the process, you can go and get it. Better that the management understand what the right metrics are than just giving you metrics on a dashboard, which are the wrong metrics. So process is important to management. And who here is in a highly regulated industry? Most of you? Some of you? Actually, probably we all are, actually, if we realise it. But if you're food, pharma, oil and gas, financial services, highly regulated, the auditors care about this. FDA, they will fine at least one company $1 billion a year. And the big farmers go, is it our turn? Okay, all right. We'll take it today. The FDA fined the American Red Cross $300 million one year for poor process. Actually, it was about mismanagement of blood transfusions. But people like the FDA have got teeth. That's why those organizations care about process. Okay? So some organizations don't care about process. I get that. If your senior executives you don't have a COO, or senior execs don't really care about process, you will find it difficult to drive some of this stuff through the organization. At the lower levels, people love it. What happens is they go, I need some investment to do this, and it works its way up the organization until it gets to that management level. They go, I don't know why we're investing in this. My suggestion, if you care about process, is you leave. You're not going to change that. Sorry, that sounds very negative, but actually it will burn you up trying to get a process-engaged way in an organization where nobody in the organization cares about process. But if you're working in food, pharma, oil and gas, construction, those sorts of organizations, they love this stuff and they're really good at it. They flew their SVPs in from around Canada to do the workshops, to do this high-level process mapping. They went, and one of the guys said, I've been in the company 30 years, this is the most valuable day I've spent since I've been here, because I've finally got to understand what the end-to-end process looks like for EPC, engineering, procurement, construction. And it was quite interesting in that workshop. We were mapping it all out, and how you, engineering, procurement, construction. So how you build a port, build the railway line, build a mine. Big, big programs. And we got to one bit which is about how you go on site, how the construction bit starts. And there was a big checkpoint there. And they said, we need an evacuation plan, we need a test plan. So there are lots of things you have to do to get from that phase. One of them being an evacuation plan, because if you're building a railway line in the Amazon, having an evacuation plan is quite important. And there are some other things that go with that. And we had the SVP of compliance in the room, and the engineering guys go, well, we don't really worry about that. And the compliance guy went, oh, yeah, I think we do. I went, no, not really. And the head of compliance said, if anybody says that again, I've got to report us, and people will go to prison. This is so important. And everyone went, oh, I didn't realize. It's that kind of stuff that comes out when you're doing this at a senior level. Okay? Last thing, we drove out the business benefits from mapping EPC, and we drove out the benefits. It was $187,000 of savings, which I thought was pretty good. A day. And they were like, wow. Big programs, lots of inertia in it, and that was the sort of benefits that came out of it. So let me show you what this is all about. There is a process diagram embedded inside Salesforce. You should be embedding this content inside your application. So people, this is point of need training. If you've spent all the effort working out the best way of doing it and linking these, say, statements of work or work instructions to this content, why hide it away on a hard disk? Why not expose it to your end users and go, this is how you should be doing this, and then give them a button that says, if it's not working, tell us so we can change it. Back to this morning's presentation. So that is not a process. The top one is not a process, the bottom one is not a process. Processes start with a verb. They don't start, there's a word called exec workshops, R&D prototypes. Okay? If you've got processes like that, you might as well throw them away. They're actually pointless. That's the first thing. They're not activities. Get buy-in's an activity, starts with a verb. The next thing is there are no lines. So when does buy-in finish? But that box 1, when does box 1 finish? I don't know. What's the output of that? When does exec workshop start? Senior guy at Toyota we used to work with said, the boxes don't matter, it's the handoffs. I know what I do, but I don't know how I hand it off to the next person, if we're not explicit. So let's think about sales. What is the difference between sales and marketing? What's the handoff? It's a lead, isn't it? What's the definition of a lead for marketing? I manage to scan you as you walk past my stand. Okay? What's the definition of a lead for sales? They're just about to purchase. Okay? Unless we get clarity on what those handoffs are, none of this works. So that's why that top one doesn't really work. The bottom one is just marketing. I've no idea what that is. That's some schematic about kind of stuff we might think about doing. That's a process. And what I want to do is I want to spend a bit of time digging into the principles of UPN based on that. So the first principle is activities start with a verb. Engage, update, validate, review. Manage doesn't count. Manage is like the word. Okay, manage lead, what's that? I'm going to validate a lead, I'm going to qualify a lead, I'm going to progress a lead, I've got to do something with it. Okay, so that's the first thing, a verb. The second thing is that we have lines between boxes, and those lines between boxes have to have words on them. And we spend more time, I think, in live workshops arguing about the words on the lines than we do the boxes. Okay? So when you're actually trying to facilitate a workshop, first thing I do is you need to find out what the input and the output is. So when do we finish, and when do we start? We start with a new lead. What's the definition of new lead? And we finish with a closed opportunity and product. What's a closed opportunity? Sorry, there is no standard answer because every single one of you in your company has got a different definition of a closed opportunity. Is it contract signed? Is it purchase order received? Is it product delivered? Is it sales guy thought he could close it? Yeah? So again, getting some definition on what these things are and getting some agreement on them, because then that will then feed back into one of your 400 pick list values for stage. Boxes must have lines between them and the lines must have text. The next thing is, who here's done flowcharts with swim lanes? Pretty much all of you, okay? You can't see any swim lanes on there, but you can. So instead of a swim lane, there's this concept of a resource. So underneath the box is a resource. Who does it? What system? What person? What facility? The reason I put the resource underneath the box rather than as a swim lane is it means the diagrams can then flow nicely right to left, rather than you positioning the boxes in some weird places so they fit on swim lanes. Bear in mind, this is going to get delivered to someone's screen, so I can't end up with 52 boxes on a screen and all these funny, trying to fit things onto swim lanes. So the idea of a resource sitting on the bottom of that box means that we can now we can make the diagrams make more sense to end users. Because the confused mind says no. The confused mind says no. I look at this and go, I don't understand it. I'll tell you what, I'll phone Pete because he remembers. Okay? So there's all of this, like back to custom and practice. So that's the next thing. The other thing is, can you see that some of the boxes have got a little corner on them? That means there's a lower level diagram. So this is a hierarchical mapping approach. So any box can drill down to the next level of detail, the next level of detail. Why is that important? You're trying to keep fewer than 10 to 8 to 10 boxes on a screen to make it readable. But if I want to know how I engage a contact, I can now drill down and go to the next level of detail. So I get the concept of what we're doing here. Lead to qualified opportunity. Okay, how do I do that? I can drill down to the next level of detail, or there's a paperclip. And if I click on the paperclip, it might be attached to a work instruction, or a web page, or a video, or a something. So suddenly I'm getting some supporting content. Now, when you're building these in live workshops, that paperclip may be the notes from the meeting. You just don't expose them to end users. So at least when you go back to it, you go, why are we doing this thing? So it's a very simple concept, but actually what behind it is we're starting to build really easily understood and read diagrams. So you can do this in live workshops with senior people. This is not going around and interviewing everybody, coming back and then drawing it and going, ta-da, is this what you thought? You actually want their fingerprints on it in the meeting, whether it's live or in person, mapping this out and working with them, and they go, yeah, that's exactly what we did, and this is what the diagram we showed was the one that you saw in the meeting, and it's the one we're all agreed on. Activities start with verbs, lines between boxes with text, resources, drill downs, and paper clips. That's pretty much it. But people go, oh, where are the diamonds? I want diamonds. Oh, I can see some on there. Can you not see the diamonds? They're just squares the other angle. I think I'm joking. That one there, box number 2, has a decision in it, doesn't it? Because it goes not closed versus closed. The decision's there. The decision is the next level down. If I start putting diamonds in, I'm starting to add more shapes to say, is it a closed opportunity? No. And then suddenly we've got almost twice as many boxes on the screen, which makes it less readable. So you may have the decision about why you go closed or not closed. It's just a note on the paperclip. It doesn't have to be a whole diagram. So this is all about making it easily readable, and everybody from the most senior to the most junior, for every discipline in the organization, go, I get this. So this is not Salesforce specific. This could be covering all of your systems, from everything from getting a lead all the way through to delivery, which may span 5, 10, 15 systems. So don't think of this as a Salesforce-y thing. Think of this as a how to drive business improvements. And then the green dot on the end, that says it's going to another diagram. So if we've built a hierarchy out, obviously I'm in this box down here. There's another box over here in the hierarchy. Instead of having to go back up and back down, I can just go from box to box to box, so I can follow my way through. And people don't know or care how many boxes are in this hierarchy. How many pages are on your website? Nobody knows or cares, provided you can navigate your way around and find what you need. Got one client, they have 10,000 diagrams in their hierarchy, in their map. Go, wow, that's a lot. Yeah, but they're a bank, a retail bank, an investment bank, wealth management. They're highly regulated. It's everything from raising an account to doing a PPP loan to doing an investment in a company to floating. All those things are documented. How I issue a checkbook. We still get checks from customers. Not that I'm happy to accept money, but surely there's a better way than sending me, not me a check, but sending a check through the post. That's a core principle about mapping, let's summarize it, aimed at multiple audiences, simple mapping approach. You can do it with any end users, engage them, and you can deliver it as content after you've done all the mapping as training material. And then when you get to do more changes, come back again and update this. This is a brilliant way of saying no to customers. If you're on the Salesforce development, systems development, application development side. You know when a customer comes to you, or your end users say, I really need a, and you go, you really want to say no, but you don't know how to, because probably they're really senior and you're junior or whatever reason. The best way of saying no is you go, absolutely, let's look at the process and tell me why you need that thing, and I'll understand what we need to go and change. And you go back to the process, and one of 3 things will happen. Number 1 is you go through the process and they go, oh, it already does what I needed. Fantastic. Happy customer, 0 effort. Situation number 2 is they look at it and go, do you know what? You wanted to pick this value, but really what we need is a new record type and a report. So you've actually found out what they really needed, not what they thought they wanted. And the third option is they may actually be right. They go, I need a pick list value. And then you discover there are other things that they need to go with it. You don't just need a pick list value. You need a report. You need something. You're not just going to put the data in. You've got to do something with it. So this is a great way of taking the customer, your end user, the customer back to, so what does it we really want to do and how do you want to change? Back to my conversation this morning about innovation. This is how to actually get innovation to stick. Get this stuff written down and get people to follow it. Now, this feels really hard, yes? Oh, I haven't got time to do that. Pick some places which are easy to get started. Don't pick your core process. We're going to fix order to cash. Yeah, good luck with that. Go and pick some places which are really easy but have good benefits. Onboarding new staff. Okay? Every person has to go through it. It's easy. There isn't very many politics associated with it. You get people coming out at the end of it having just joined a company going, this company's amazing, because you've optimized that. They arrive day one, you've documented the process, you've got it working, they've got their induction plan, they've got their laptop, they've got their phone, they've got all those things. They come out the other end of it, they've got a plan to meet the boss in 90 days, to do a review, all those things that should happen, documented, and you can make that really work. Low politics, really effective, impacts everybody coming into the organization. It's something you can do that's achievable. So, Nestlé, end-to-end processes all the way down to plant level. If you're in Nestlé and you are on the shop floor understanding how to change a machine to be doing product X to product Y, there are process maps that they're going through and stepping through on the shop floor to go, how do I do this, how do I do this, what's attached, what's attached. So this has been driven all the way down through the organization. And important words there, end-to-end process thinking, breaking down silos, all the things that you're trying to do to try and drive innovation and make the organization work better. I'm guessing the next one is a car company. So speed to access of processes was increased by 34 times. They measured it. They actually looked at how easy and difficult it was to get to training materials so they could do their job. Because they could follow the process and find the attachments 34 times faster. That's Chevron Oil and Gas, Jim Boots. This is all about visibility. Pinpoint shortcomings that were not possible relying on language. Back to the picture paints 1,000 words. You'll be staggered what comes out when you start drawing diagrams. I facilitated a workshop at a board level, and it was really clear by lunchtime. So it was an all-day workshop. It was really clear by lunchtime. There were 2 senior people in the organization who had exactly the same job with teams with different job titles. So I went to the CEO at lunchtime and said, how do you want to handle this? And he went, you're handling this. It's like, okay. So we just kept on going, played it out. 2 weeks later, the guy and the whole team was made redundant. Huge saving there. But how soul-destroying is to know that you're doing the same thing as somebody else. They left happily. But again, those sorts of things, over time, these things just build up and you really don't understand how much duplication and waste has been built into the system. And I think particularly now when we're worried about job losses or people worried about doing more with less, this is a great time to start thinking about, okay, let's pick an area and really understand how we can optimize it, how we can take the waste out. Back to this morning with don't improve something which is broken. Let's get rid of stuff that we don't need, and then improve the stuff that makes a difference. This will take a little bit of time to actually get people engaged in it as well. The people who hate it are salespeople, because they go, I'm not a process, this is art. No, it kind of isn't. There are bits of what you do may be art, but most of what we want you to do around telling us what you do is a process, and if we can make that easier for you, fantastic. If we can simplify the systems you use based on what we know you now need, great, let's get rid of those 700 fields you never use. I had one customer with 460 fields on an opportunity. And you know how you fill out an opportunity? You fill nothing out and you hit save, and then you go, which ones are red? Right. What's the minimum I have to do to fill that out? Right. Which validation rules did I get wrong? Right. And we're done. Okay? You're all smiling. Got one customer, 256 record types on the opportunity. 130 picklist fields, some of which had hundreds of picklist values. So for those of you in Salesforce know that you have to map every picklist value to a record type. There were 5 million mappings. There's an opportunity there probably for cleanup. In fact, they were trying to do an org merge, and they went, we want to merge that org with that one. We went, that one's Dilbert, that's War and Peace. I think there's a cleanup exercise required first, because there's no point banging these things together. But again, that's the catalyst for let's do a bit of business process re-engineering, understand how we're going to change it. And this won't take long. It'll take 6 of you, an afternoon, and you'll be staggered by the benefits that come out of it. Just doing that live process mapping. You really will be surprised. We'll pick a couple more. Cost per transaction from €16 down to 3, and exceeded our target for, and that was ING Bank in Holland. We've got 1 or 2 more. JP Morgan. If we'd had our processes up to date when we started the restructure, we could have executed it in half the time. And we're hearing that again and again and again. So these are the sorts of stories that you need to take back to your management when you go, I really need to do this, because these are the sorts of benefits we can get. Trust us. Don't make me build more stuff. Please give me the time to actually do some proper business analysis to understand what we should be building. Then we can build it properly. And there will be quite a lot of pushback going, just build it. The answer is, that word just is the worst word in the world. Just add it. No, I'm not going to do that unless I've really understood. So I'll tell you one story from our own implementation. We did a bunch of business analysis using the processes for one area of the business that the sales team wanted. They got to the end of it and they went, based on what we've now understood, based on understanding the complication of the org we're pulling out of, that's going to take about 4 to 6 weeks worth of work. Do you want us to do that? And the sales team went, no, there are better things you could spend your time on. So we did all that upfront analysis and didn't actually do the build, which is a result. You go, well, you wasted all that time on the analysis. No, we didn't. We got all the benefit of not spending time building it and then nobody using it. So there's quite a lot of power in terms of what we're doing here tied to the other things you do around the org. Understanding what metadata is, understanding what the user stories are. But business processes is a critical part of that. I'm English. We couldn't finish without tea, could we? This is Twinings. And I think it's actually, I put it in last because I think it's quite nice. It's a way of creating a step change in our ways of working as we look for new and innovative ways of staying ahead. So I think it finishes the conference day one off quite nicely with this idea of innovation, which is innovation actually is about driving better operations, which is about driving better process. So 3 resources there. Obviously, Elements is a process mapping solution. There's a playground you can use for free. You can use for process mapping. There's an academy that we've with a ton of content, which is all about how to do process mapping. But if you don't believe us, you can believe Salesforce, because there's a UPN training course around how you do business analysis. Spoiler alert, they asked me to write it. But again, it's a lot of the principles here have been based on, UPN started in 2004. So it's been around a while. It's proven it works in organization after organization. If you're still using flowcharts, even if you just applied some of the principles of UPN to your flowcharts, you'll find a massive benefit. If you start moving to this whole idea of a hierarchy and simplified boxes, I think you'll find way better engagement with end users, better engagement with developers. You've actually got a way of having a conversation with senior management. And suddenly you can start getting ahead of changes rather than actually being on the back foot.